know you love it, so let's get into it.
So you've been commenting a lot on the squad builders, the reacting to the Villa and Newcastle fans, all that kind of stuff. So Deadly Dizzle, big up to you. His comment was, Sim, using the example of Rodgers and Palmer leaving City because they could afford to lose them isn't a flex. It could also represent a missed opportunity from right under your nose. Rodgers has turned into an unbelievable player, the league winner's prime target for over 100 million after City let him go for peanuts. I'm sure they'd love him back, and their success in the meantime wasn't determined by his sale. Maybe he wouldn't have reached the same heights having to wait for his chance, but it didn't hurt the likes of Foden or O'Reilly. I'm not actually saying to hold on to Gray and Bergvall necessarily, but there's a strong possibility we'll look back on them as missed opportunities. The only tonic would be if the new recruits deliver league titles, which is a long shot if we're honest.
I don't think you're saying it's a flex. It's definitely not a flex.
I'm not saying, I'm not sitting here saying that they wouldn't like Rodgers back potentially, or even a Palmer or whatever, or they're not good players and maybe they look back on their sales badly. My point being is they haven't missed them. In the meantime, they've sold those players and they're not thinking about missing them. They're not thinking about, I wish we had them, because they've gone on and won trophy after trophy, league titles. They're not sitting here thinking, why didn't we keep Palmer? Why didn't we keep Rodgers? They're sitting here thinking, we need a certain amount of wins to win a title because we're in a title race. That's their thought process, and they're not crying over spilled milk or how these players turned out, because they've got world-class players in those positions, or they had anyway at the time. So they're not worried about that. That's my point. I understand they let them go and they've turned out to be great players, and maybe, in hindsight, could they have got more money? Could they have kept them? Those are different questions. My point being is, same with Bergvall and Gray. We might sell them and look back and thinking, I wish we kept them. But we also might be so preoccupied with how well our team is doing. We're not going to be worried about how well those players turn out to be.
I guess the whole point is that when you're trying to be a big or a top club, no matter what kind of what you think the future holds for these players, if they're getting itchy feet and they think they should be getting game time right now, but they're just not there yet, and you feel like you've got better players, they're not going to be getting the game time, and these guys are pushing to leave because they think they should be getting the game time, then it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you've got better players there at that moment in time. Your transfer strategy is to keep bringing in good players. So you take the money and you move on. That's what you got to do.
That's it. So if they turn out to be unbelievable players, which they might well do, and there's a good chance they do, then fair play to them. And we'll look about their career and say, mate, look, there's a chance we could have kept them. But if we're doing what we're doing with Tonali and Fernandes, we're not going to be thinking about how good of a player Bergvall or Gray turns out to be. Even if they turn out to be better than them in a few years' time, right now, Fernandes and Tonali, if they're the players that we've chosen, and as long as they're doing their job and they turn out to be as good as we hope they will, we're not going to be thinking about what Bergvall or Gray turn out to be if we do end up selling them. As I said, I'd like to keep them. Yeah. I wouldn't want to sell them, but if we can get good money and they want to leave, then it is what it is.
Exactly.
Anvil 926, who says, I actually think Solanke will have a season similar to why we signed him with Bournemouth. If he's our main striker, I think we will see 20 to 22 goals this season. Our manager will get him back to his best. Had an awful first season, but the second season doesn't count for me. Entire team was poor and he was injured for the majority of it.
Yeah, well, the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, I hope so. I really hope so. I think he just needs to keep fit, and we need to find the best uses for him. I think that Solanke, in terms of profile, is someone that De Zerbi will enjoy playing. He can cause chaos in the box. He can finish. He can get a high volume of goals that he showed in that season at Bournemouth. But at this moment in time, in terms of in the top flight, that's the only season he's got to look back on to say he's had a real top season. So he needs to prove himself. That's the reality. At Spurs, he's been a bit underwhelming, or say he's been underwhelming. So he's got to prove it to the fans. He's got to prove it to De Zerbi, and I think he's got 1 year to do it.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. You can't have 3 bad seasons, and that's it. I think Look, I'm open to selling Solanke this season if we get a good offer. Again, I wouldn't sell him for cheap. I think there is a good player there. I think when he has played for Tottenham, I think he has shown his quality. But the reality is, similar to Rishi, we don't get him on the pitch enough. He's had lots of issues for whatever reason with injuries at Tottenham, whereas before it just hasn't really been an issue for him. So I don't know what's happened at Tottenham, why he's getting all these injuries all of a sudden. But it is the truth. He has been injured a lot. I think his goal scoring record overall, when you look at minutes to goals and stuff like that, it's not terrible. It's actually not horrific. So I do think if we can keep him fit for a whole season, you can get a good number of goals out of him. And I think we've seen in the Premier League he can do that. I don't think even at his best he's one of the best. He's the best striker in the league. He's an elite striker. He's just not that level. I think he's a good player. He can get you, 15 goals, maybe 20 goals at the very upper limit. But he's not a player who's ever going to be in the world-class category, in my opinion. So we just got to live with that. But I do think there's a good player there.
Absolutely. What's the next one?
Gilfie says, I really don't want to sell Sarr and Bergvall. Don't get me wrong, Tonali definitely starts ahead of them, and Fernandes probably does too. But those two players have a potentially great future ahead of them, and that future could be at Spurs. Sarr has had his dips in form, but when he's been playing well, he's done some really important things for us, and Bergvall is a star in the making. We have them at the club. It is not easier to keep them rather than... we have them at the club. It is not easier to keep them rather than in a few years spend more than we sell them for on a player that's as good as they could become at that point in the future.
That's the whole point. He's talking about the future again. We're supposed to be building a team for now. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with him. I think Sarr can be a good player in the future. I think Bergvall can be a very good player in the future, but we can't keep holding on to these players and hope that they're going to be good players in the future when we're trying to build a team for now. If the players are willing to stay and willing to have a lack of game time in that period, then fine. I'm happy to keep Bergvall, albeit I think Sarr probably should go regardless. But they're not happy for those roles. Bergvall's not happy for a role like that. So you can't keep someone like that, especially it's going to stagnate their career. It's not going to do them any good. So you may as well take the money.
Yeah. I don't like the fact that we have to sell them, but here's the reality. We're not in Europe next season. There's going to be limited minutes to go around. These players right now have underperformed last season, and as well as good players they could be, when we're signing players for big money, we also need to recoup some sort of outlay, and we can't just continue spending 400, 500 million without any sort of sales, not just because of the money, but because there's not space in the squad for all these players. So I want Bergvall to stay. I don't want to sell him, but it's just the reality of the situation. It's not nice. It's a horrible situation when you're letting go of such a talent. But when you're looking at the predicament Tottenham are in, it's probably the right choice, or an understandable choice, I should say.
Yeah.
Bob P4 says, why on earth sell Spence? Madness. In his prime, fantastic fullback, England World Cup player, versatile, homegrown. Name me a homegrown player that is better. We would be wanting to buy him for 50 million if we didn't have him.
Well, apparently De Zerbi doesn't rate him. I do rate Spence. I think in an ideal world, I wouldn't want to sell him. I'd love to have him and Porro competing for that right back spot next season. But is that a role that Spence wants in the team? Because it is a backup to Porro. It's not even like Porro's miles better than Spence, in my opinion. So again, it's about what Spence wants to do, what role he wants to take up. I think he can go to a Premier League team and start week in, week out. So I think that's probably what Spence would prefer. But in my opinion, I would love to have them both at the club.
Yeah, I think we're Tottenham fans, and from what we can see from Spence, I think he adds a lot of value. But if there's something with him and De Zerbi, maybe he doesn't appreciate his mentality, or maybe it's just a clash of personality potentially between the two. Who knows? If there is a problem, we're hearing there might be, and I think he's not he's not like an untouchable. And if De Zerbi thinks just get money for him and replace him, then I'm fine with that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I also do like Spence. I also do think it's not going to be the easiest thing to replace him. and he's versatile and he offers a lot of things, and he's a brilliant one-on-one defender, and that's a quality in the squad I think could be useful. I don't think we should just give up easily. So I personally would like to keep him, but if Zerbi's like, you know what, get some money, I prefer, you know, a different player in that position. I'm not seeing it complaining too much. I just personally would keep him. I don't think it's madness, put it that way, if that's what De Zerbi is thinking. Kieran Proper says, I really think we should cut bait with Bentancur. I really think we cut, I think means sell Bentancur. He has been great, but it opens Gray and Bergvall to play a lot of minutes. People forget that one injury or just rotating players is very important for cups or games with weaker teams, and having great players coming on with 20 minutes left in a game to change it, and Bergvall is great for that. I think it's a difficult one. I think individually, I think Bergvall obviously has a bigger future than Bentancur. I think we can all agree on that. And if you're asking me in isolation who I'd rather keep in my club for the long term, I think it's Bergvall. But here's the predicament that De Zerbi has, is he's got Fernandes and Tonali, right? If he sells Bentancur, that means an injury, a long-term injury to one of our senior players, and we don't have another senior player coming in. So we're quite sure. I think he'd preferably have 3 senior midfielders, and you've got a youngster or one of the younger players like Bergvall, Gray coming in to get some game time and develop. But I think, are you just leaving it a bit too short if you only have 2 senior established Premier League midfielders in your squad? You know, if they both get injured, all of a sudden you don't have any, and you're in a bit of trouble. So it's a difficult one. I understand what you're saying. I think Bergvall could definitely be a better player than Bentancur in the future, but I think De Zerbi is thinking about right next season, doesn't want to leave himself too short for senior midfielders.
Yeah, it's true, but you know, you're looking at Bentancur, and I think he probably wants more of a starting role at a team. Is he going to get... I think Bentancur is coming to the end at Tottenham, whether it be this summer or next summer. I don't think he'll last past next summer, particularly with these 2 central midfielders that we've brought in. However, having said that, we are a better squad with Bentancur in it. There is no doubt about that. I think Bentancur is well ahead of Lucas Bergvall at this moment in time. I think he had a major impact in Spurs staying up last season when he came in. So for next season, Bentancur is the better bet. But for the future and past next season, I think Bergvall is probably the better bet. So it's like, what do you want out of the squad? It's a hard one. It really is a hard one.
Yeah, I think from one sense, it's difficult to justify. If you're saying Bentancur could be gone within a year, it's hard to justify selling a talent like Bergvall for 1 year of Bentancur, if that's what we're saying. So from that side, it's difficult to justify. But when you're looking at De Zerbi's point of view, if he wants to give himself the best shot of, you know, either keeping his job and improving Tottenham, then Bentancur would be the player right now you would pick. But I think I would love both Gray and Bergvall to stay, and maybe even, you know, get so good that they're taking minutes off Bentancur because they're just proving themselves. But, you know, whether they get the minutes to do that, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. When does Bentancur's contract even run out?
He signed a new one, didn't he?
Yeah.
Not so long ago.
Didn't he sign a new one and there was no date on it or something?
Yeah. I don't exactly know when it is, but I think it was beginning of last season, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it says contract expires 2029.
So what are we now? So 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got quite a bit.
So when he goes into 2 years left, I think they'll look to sell him. I don't think he'll get another contract.
Depends how good he is.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets another one at 2, though. I think if we give another one, if we let him go into his last year, that's what I reckon.
Potentially, but you know, you're looking at him. He'll be 30 by the end of next season. Spurs obviously don't see him as the starter right now, so it's like, where's his head going to be at come next summer as well?
Of course, all depends. Obviously, the big question mark is: are we ever going to see the Bentancur pre-injury? If we start seeing more of that consistently, maybe we'll want to keep him. But if not, yeah, it is what it is. Reshek says, as a Milan fan, I'm telling you, signing Rafael Leao would be a bigger disaster than Ndombele. There is a reason why Premier League clubs are not exactly lining up for him. It's his work rate. The stats prove he runs less than Ronaldo. In modern football, a winger who does not track back is a liability. That puts massive physical strain on the rest of the team. The left back and the midfielders have to do his running to cover the space he leaves, which inevitably leads to fatigue and injuries. The team balance just collapses. Forget about defensive tracking. He does not even press in the final third, probably because he's protecting those hips. He just waits for the ball and only turns it on when we are attacking. It seems like people in England do not care about these details and just get excited whenever they hear a big name. I get it. Why would they watch Serie A? But it's generally bizarre to see people hype him up without having watched a single full game of his lately.
Also, lately, he's been playing with injury and out of position. So I don't see him mentioning that. That massively goes into the context of Rafael Leao, and last season was obviously his poorest season in the Milan shirt. So it's all on De Zerbi. If De Zerbi thinks he can get him running and get him on side, you know, a Rafael Leao that is on side could be one of the best wingers in the Premier League with the talent that he has. That is for sure. But nobody is saying that it's not a risk. It's a massive risk bringing in Rafael Leao because of the narrative surrounding him over the past couple of years. So nobody's doubting that. But I think maybe De Zerbi thinks he can get him back to his best. And if you get him back to his best, he is a phenomenal player.
You got to remember, he's also been at a team where he's been there a while, 7, 8 years. For many of those years, he's been by far and away the best player in the team, one of the best players in the league. And when you've sometimes been at a club for that long, it can, you can get frustrated with the project, especially Milan. They've been very up and down. There's been no clear direction. And sometimes you can look at, for example, look at Harry Kane. I know it was only for a short amount of time, but at the beginning of Nuno, for like 3 months, he was terrible. He was so bad. And I remember there was calls to drop him. We had John Cooper on the show saying he's not world class anymore, all these different things. But, all he needed was to be reinvigorated. All he needed was like a manager to believe it, he could believe in again, and he could believe in the direction of the club again.
Goes one of two ways though, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
It depends what your mentality is. Obviously, Kane's got a top mentality.
Yeah.
So he was able to be reinvigorated. But then
of course,
you got other players that.
I'm just saying this. If a player, that's my point though. Even if a player like Kane can lose his way, right? With that, and we know he has top mentality. So a player with such great mentality, if even he can lose his way, right? Imagine a player like like Leao. Especially when Kane got that resolved over 3 months. Maybe it hasn't been resolved for Milan for a while. Maybe he's getting even more disgruntled and frustrated over a longer period than just 3 months that Kane did. So there's a lot that can go into it on players' mentality. I guess it all comes down to what his intentions of coming to the Premier League are. Is he coming because he feels like he needs to level up? He needs to prove himself against the best. He needs to push himself.
Studios in London, apparently.
Or is it because he likes the glitz and the glamour? He just wants more money. He just wants the more attention and all that kind of stuff. It's not about him trying to prove himself. Now, Iggy said something interesting, which got me thinking. He said he needs a coach like De Zerbi. He needs someone who's going to push him. De Zerbi isn't going to take any shit from him. He's not going to accept not tracking back. He's not going to accept him not pressing. He's not going to bring in Leao. Obviously, you never really know until he's through the door whether he's going to do these things. He can say he will, but whether he does it on the pitch, it's another thing. But my point is, he's not going to tolerate it at Tottenham. He'll be out the team. If he's not doing it, he won't play. And yes, could that cause an issue? But my point is that, it is a risk. But we're not if we're not going to have a Leao on the pitch if he's not tracking back and not playing. He's not gonna be doing that, because if he does that, he won't play. Is my point. We'll have Savinho, we'll have someone else in the team because De Zerbi won't tolerate it. So having a manager like De Zerbi at the helm kind of mitigates that risk a bit, if you know what I mean.
That's why a loan move. That's why it needs to be a loan move. Because if we're stuck with him, we're going to be hard to find it to shift him. We're going to lose money very quickly.
We'll shift him to Saudi or something. That's
yeah, it's true, but it's easier said than done. I think it has to be a loan move then, if that's the case. If he's going to get the hump with De Zerbi, no, I'm not saying he is, but from what you're saying, it's a potential. If he gives De Zerbi all the words saying he's going to do this, he's going to press, he's going to track back, he's going to work so hard for the team, and then he ends up it doesn't after a couple of months, and he's out the team. then we're just stuck with the player, aren't we? And
Yeah.
so it needs to be a loan then, doesn't it?
I mean, preferably, yeah. But is it worth the risk of signing him permanently? That's obviously the question we ask ourselves. My only point being is, we talk about what's happening over Milan over the last couple of years with him. Is there a possibility that, his mentality is just because of how Milan is going? As I've said, as we saw with Kane, could that be happening with Leao on just a little bit of a bigger scale, or a little bit of a longer term? And if he does come to Tottenham, we'll see a reinvigorated Leao. We'll see someone who's got that fire back in him, because that just seems to have gone out of him at the moment. And maybe he just needs a change. Maybe he just needs a new environment. Maybe he just needs a manager who is not going to let him slack off, who's not going to just say, you know what, you just do what you want, don't worry about tracking back, and we'll let the team deal with that, you do your. But he's gonna get into him, he's gonna push him, he's gonna demand from him that he be as good as he can be. And I think that's what De Zerbi's kind of character that would do.
Yeah, you know what, that might have actually been the downfall for him. I know he had his best season that year. I know Iggy was talking about him under Pioli for Milan in the title-winning season, where he was like, you know what, don't worry about tracking back, don't worry about this. You just do what you do at the top end of the pitch. That might have been actually the start of the downfall, because he thought maybe he got a bit too big for his boots there.
Potentially.
And then he kind of just stopped doing it under every manager.
Yeah, my only point being is we're judging him on a period where we might not have been seeing the real Leao over these last year or two. It's hard to say, but maybe that is what it is. That's my point. But we can't say definitively. Maybe just we've seen it before.
I would take the punt.
Colin Wong says, give Levy credit. He made the club a commercial giant that will keep the club competitive no matter what happens on the field. He made the club sustainable. You can't flex over the clubs, over other clubs, without giving him some credit. COYS Daniel.
I mean, I have been over the past week, or since we've been splashing the money. I've said a lot. I've given Daniel Levy a lot of praise. I've probably given him more praise over the last couple of weeks than I've given him in 25 years. So I do give him credit for where he's left as a football club, because I don't think we'd be able to spend this money without the work that he did. I think that's fact.
Yeah, exactly. The only point I think we make is just Levy would have never have done it. He was always great at building great diversified incomes and revenue streams, and brilliant, but he just never had the balls to use those advantages. He would never slap all that big money. We heard from Ange, we're never going to be that club that spends 100 million. That's because he probably came from Levy. They would say we would never go that far. We always would keep it within a very strict budget.
Every manager has said it pretty much in different words. Pochettino, nice stadium, a nice house, no furniture. Conte, this club. Jose Mourinho has said many things on the ownership at Tottenham. Ange said what he said. You know what I mean? It's like a non-stop kind of conveyor belt of disses to Daniel Levy in the hierarchy of this football club. But Daniel Levy took us to a stage where we can do what we can do now, but he was also holding us back at the same time. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think Levy's just never really got his head around that football, as much as the business side is important. You can't run the footballing club like a business, necessarily. It's a very specific kind of business. Like if sometimes if you don't push the boat out, it will cost you more in the long run, because you don't get the player that you want that would rightly fit for the team that you need. You end up going for a cheaper option who's less quality. You end up, he ends up not being good enough, so you have to buy another player in that position, whereas you would have saved money probably if you just outright got for that player in the first place. And Levy never quite grasped that, and he just never did.
We've stagnated and brought in average players for so long, ever since basically the back end of the Pochettino reign. And yes, there have been some good players in there as well, but if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And we've moved backwards so much. We've gone from a Champions League final to a relegation fight. Yeah, and that's all on Daniel Levy.
Yeah, exactly. John McCrea says, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah, it's been a great window so far. But we need to stay humble, and hopefully we have an amazing season coming up. Then we can blow our own trumpet if we are successful. Until then, let's keep it low key. We have had too many false dawns to get ahead of ourselves.
It's very, very true, but it's not going to stop us getting excited with spending all this money. But I do agree with that 100%. But it's hard to keep calm and level-headed when you're signing these players and top quality players. The wage structure's been smashed. The transfer budget's been smashed. More to come, and it's just like we've never seen this at Tottenham before. So it's just like, how are you supposed to keep calm? But I agree, that's probably what we should be doing. But it's not reality.
Yeah, it's tempting to go early, isn't it? We're going to be in a title challenge. We're going to be this. We're going to do that. Everyone, the whole Premier League, watch out. All these kind of things. And when you're signing the players of the caliber we're signing, who's spending the money that we are, it's so tempting, and you get drawn up in all of it, don't you? But the reality is, we haven't seen us play a game of football yet. So until that happens, until we see us on the pitch actually, being as good as we hope we can be with all these players. It's easy to say we're guaranteed to be at a certain level. We're guaranteed to challenge for Champions League now. We're guaranteed this and that. But you got to remember, the Premier League is still so tough and competitive. Until we're actually performing it on the pitch, we should never really get too ahead of ourselves about what we can achieve and what we can do. And that is the truth. And you're absolutely right about it. But when you'll see we're signing Tonali, Fernandes, Van Hecke, some of the top performing players in the Premier League, it's hard. Senesi, it's hard not to get swept up in all of that and think and dream about what can be achieved and what we can do. But I think, he's spot on. Like, when it comes to these other clubs, like, Newcastle, Villa, and all these clubs that we're like flexing on at the moment, there's no reason still why they can't compete with us on the pitch as much as we're blowing them way off it.
Yeah, exactly.
RMB Yido says that's because, so he's talking about why a Villa fans so pissed off. He says that's because Villa took our spot for the last few seasons, and now they know it's in danger regardless of finishing 17th for 2 seasons in a row. Tottenham are a bigger club and will always be bigger than Villa.
Yeah, I don't think they've always has been bigger than Villa, because obviously Villa have got European Cups to their name, not just UEFA Cup. They've got, literally the top dog. So they have been a bigger club than us in the past. But if you're looking at the Premier League era, Spurs have been a bigger club, particularly over the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, we finished in European competition 18 times. They've done it about 6 times.
It was interesting. Did you see the video on TalkSport? Darren Bent and Carl Walker were asked about who's a bigger club, Villa or Spurs, and they both said Villa.
Yeah.
So, I wonder what they're basing that on.
They're basing it solely on the European Cup.
They said it's because they won the European Cup. But that makes no sense. That would mean Huddersfield are bigger than us then, or something. Didn't they win the European Cup? So that just because you won a European Cup in the 60s, I'm not saying it means nothing, but it doesn't.
I think it was a lot later than the 60s, wasn't it?
Or whatever it was, 80s.
Yeah.
Just because you won a European Cup then, that doesn't correlate to size of a club in 2026.
I mean, you say that, but I mean, before this UEFA Cup win, we were flexing the 80s and the European Cup, saying Arsenal got no European pedigree.
That's different. That's still true, because we've won more European Cups. And as I said, it doesn't mean nothing, but it doesn't mean about the size of a club. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to the size of a football club, in 2026. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to that. When we're flexing on Arsenal, it's because they haven't won any major European trophies that exist, and we can flex that because they're still they don't have any European pedigree compared to us in that sense. Even though they got to a Champions League final, we've been to a Champions League final as well recently. So it's different. So, that's a different.
Then
I'm not saying we're a bigger club than Arsenal because of it. I never said that.
What did you say?
We got more European pedigree.
Yeah, but
that's different.
But again,
that's a different argument.
They can throw the same thing back. Where you won it in the 80s, it makes no difference.
We haven't. We won it in 2020.
Yeah, I'm talking about before that.
No, but that's a different. You're talking about 2 different things.
No, I'm not.
You are.
Why?
We're talking about the size of a club. We're talking about European pedigree.
Yeah, but I'm saying the same kind of reasoning and rebuttals could still be made.
No.
Why not?
Because the size of a club's got nothing to do with pedigree. We're talking about what I guess it depends what your definition of the size of a club is.
Yeah.
For me, it's right now, how big you are financially, your global fan base. Obviously, the trophy cabinet comes into it as well, but how often you're you're finishing in the high echelons of the league. How often in European football in the current, like the size of football clubs change. You're not just a size and then that's it. Villa were probably bigger than us when they won the European Cup, but right now they're not, and that's because of all the different things, that we've put in place, and a lot of it comes down to revenue and global fan base, and I think dwarf them when it comes to those two things.
100%.
So I think that when it comes to the size of the club, when it comes to the question with European pedigree and us winning trophies, that's a different question. That's purely down to football. That's got nothing to do with all those other things.
I think it all comes into it. I think, the size of the club, the size of the fan base, the revenues, but also sporting merit has to come into it.
Yeah, of course it does.
When you're talking about, the size of a football club.
Yeah, but us and Villa are very even keel when it comes to the amount of trophies we've won, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
in total.
Won. Yeah, I mean, in terms of numbers of trophies, I think the Villa have more than us.
I think they have, but it's close. It's not far off.
But obviously the level of trophies as well that they've got over us, having a European Cup.
Yeah, they got a European Cup, but fine. But my point being is that when we're talking about the size of a club in 2026 in general, that's, that winning a European Cup, as I say, Huddersfield doesn't come into it, does it? Why don't they? If they're sporting merit, it counts for as, a massive thing.
League Two.
Exactly. So where the club is at in 2026 obviously holds more water, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but where we are in 2026 is that we finished 17th twice and Villa have been in European competition.
No, I understand that, but the size of the club but you can't discount the revenues we bring in and the global fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Huddersfield don't have that. So regardless of them in League Two, they don't have that. If we were in League Two, we would still have those things.
Yeah.
So
don't know, would we?
Okay, we wouldn't have the revenues, but we would still have the global fan base.
Yeah, I think it would decrease for sure. But look, I think Villa are a very big football club. Don't get it twisted. But I think right now we are ahead of them, even with finishing 17th twice in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we have a bigger fan base. They're the biggest club in the Midlands by far. They're a massive club, and they do have better sporting merit than us in terms of the history. The things that we've got over them is probably a bigger fan base and bigger revenues. The money side of it.
Mm-hmm. You say that, and we have finished in Europe 18 out of the last 20 seasons or whatever it is, and they've only done it in the last few years.
And they've been relegated.
So that also comes into it as well.
Yeah.
And if who's more likely to sign whose best player? Are we more likely to sign their best player or them ours? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it came to it. We loaned them players for development, like Carl Walker. In the last 10 years or whatever it was.
So I think that tells you all you need to know.
And did Danny Rose go there as well?
No, I don't think Rose went to Villa. Ross Thompson says everyone did I read that one already? No, yeah. Everyone bantering us we don't spend the money or pay wages. Then they're all crying when we start spending hundreds of millions willy-nilly. We live in everyone's head rent-free.
Sorry, say that again?
Everyone's bantering us when we don't spend the money or pay the wages. Then they all start crying when we start spending hundreds of millions willy-nilly. So we live in everyone's head rent-free.
It's exactly that. It's just like...
It's because we're massive.
Pick a lane, guys. Like, they're just gonna pick on us for whatever it is. So
yeah.
I don't really take too much notice of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I just find it interesting, though. Like... Everyone, the whole Premier League and whatever, they always make fun of Tottenham. Oh, you're never spending, you're not going to push the bar, you're never going to pay the wages, you're never going to attract these kind of players because of that. And then we start putting the money down on the table. They're like, oh, you're overpaying. Oh, it's ridiculous to finish 17th. Oh, this and that. You're never going to win with rival fans. That's just reality. You're never going to win.
They'll pick anything. But like when other clubs overpay, like I heard nothing about overpaying when Man City bought Elliot Anderson from any other rival fan. No one says anything about them.
Yeah.
But when we overpay, because we finished 17th twice in a row,
all of a sudden it's some ridiculous
all
thing.
of a sudden, it's like some big breaking news. But it's not. It's just like this is what big clubs do. Sometimes you have to overplay.
It makes actually more sense that we have to overpay than City. Because City have all the advantages.
We've had to overpay to get these players over the line. There was no other way that we were going to get them.
Ebony Shogun says, let's not become arrogant like United fans, lads. Stay humble, keep pushing.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned the United fans. I was just thinking about that. It's like, I'm not bothered about the comments from Villa or Newcastle. To be fair, I'm not bothered about the comments from Manchester United fans either, but I find the comments from Manchester United fans a lot funnier than I do from Newcastle and Villa, because I actually kind of get the frustration from Newcastle and Villa fans. I do get it. But the Man United fans, like, it's just hilarious, man, because they've been overpaying for players for the last, like, 2 decades or however long it's been. And suddenly Spurs are beating them to the punch. They've gone in a different way. And, you know, how can these players join Tottenham over Manchester United? It's just brilliant.
Yeah, they're just trying to constantly little bro us. Little old Tottenham, how dare you outbid us on a bid? It's like, surely you're not allowed to outbid the great Manchester United on a bid. Surely if you've outbid them, there must be an overpayment, because no way would any Man United stop short of a fair market value. No way. You are Tottenham Hotspur. Stay in your lane, and the frustration coming out of them is absolutely fantastic to see. And I understand the frustration, as you say, from Villa and Newcastle, is like, you finished below us, and like, why are you able to spend all this money? But for Man United, it's like, you're little Tottenham. Like, stay down there. You're not allowed to come up here and rival us for bids. How dare you? It's like that we even dared to rival them for a transfer offends them. It's crazy. It's so funny.
Literally, they were saying to West Ham, you should accept our bid for 40 million instead of going to Tottenham for 85 million.
Ridiculous. But it's interesting to say, you know, when you cast your mind back, like back in, what was it, 8 or 9 years ago, United spent massive money on Pogba for big money. They got Zlatan in that window. I think they got Mkhitaryan. Like, they did sign a lot of good players that year, and it didn't exactly work out. So I think that's also a lesson, like, just because you're spending big money on big players, you know, doesn't always guarantee success.
Yeah. That was under Louis van Gaal, or was it Mourinho?
Mourinho.
Yeah.
Under a top manager.
I think the difference was they signed some really good players, but it was all kind of felt like a scattergun approach more than anything else. They were just signing players because of the name. They weren't signing players that actually fit what they want to do. So I think that's the difference between what Spurs are doing right now and what Manchester United did then. Like, Spurs are hitting players with precision of the profiles that we need and the positions that we need. And I think it's the most targeted transfer window I've seen from Tottenham. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. So that's what Klopp said as well when he said he was offered the United job, and he was like seeing what the deals they were lining up, and he was like, well, you're just going them because they're big players, not because they're good for Man United. And you're absolutely spot on about that.
Yeah, well, look,
that's it.
That is it from us today, guys. We shall see you all very, very soon. Hopefully we get a weekend bomb.